Girls who say they want to be chased instead of chasing them. What are your thoughts?
Well, it is true that men are supposed to initiate the courtship. It's, they get the number. I have to say they meet a girl. They get her number. They get her contact information. They later call her, set a date, time, place, where you're gonna meet. You're gonna pick her up. You're gonna meet her out. So the guy starts the courtship. And so what's interesting is when you look back at the older movies, the black and white movies, which had healthy masculine and feminine archetypes, where the men act like men, the women act feminine and girly. And typically, what you would see is the women are competing for the most eligible bachelor, the guy in the community or the neighborhood or the small town where they all grew up, who all the girls want to date. They're competing to get his attention. And usually he's focused on his purpose and his mission in life. He wants to get out of the small town. Maybe he wants to go to the big city, or he wants to travel the world. And then the women scheme and plot how to get him alone. The mothers in the neighborhood work together to try to get the two of them together so the sparks happen and the chemistry happens. And so the women are always trying to get the guy's attention. But now what you see is the exact opposite. You get all the men are acting like girls, and the women act very stoic and very masculine, like we were talking about yesterday when we were filming. It's like most of the sitcoms say. What do you got? You got the bumbling idiot husband that can't do anything right. He's constantly lying to his wife about little stupid things, and then she finds out he's lying, and the whole episode is like him trying to undo what he did because he lied. And so the woman acts very masculine, the guy acts very effeminate. If it's a where the guy and the girl like each, or at least the guy likes the girl, he pursues her almost like stalkerish. And of course, at some point in the movie, the girl's like, "Oh, the right guy was there all along," and then they live happily ever after. And guys do that in the real world today. They emulate what they see in TV and the movies, and then they get, "Oh, I don't feel it. There's any chemistry. There's no spark. Something's missing. I just think of you as a friend." And the guy keeps pursuing to the point he gets eventually a restraining order. If you act like they do in the movies today and TV, you get a restraining order. And I'm like, we were talking about yesterday. It's like you had plenty of guys that behave that way. Jocelyn was talking about how a guy, she told him no uncertain terms that she wanted anything to do with the dude. And yet he shows up at the house. She says, "This is inappropriate. I'm not interested, friends only." And he continued to reach out and pursue. But the way it works, the way attraction tends to work, is the men start the courtship off, and usually by the second or third or the fourth date, if the guy's just say making one date a week, and there's many reasons why you want to do that. You want a woman who's cool, easygoing, easy to get along with, not insecure, not demanding, not easy to get angry. And so if you just start dating a girl once a week on average, the insecure ones are going to get pissed off because you're not calling enough, you're not texting enough. And then that makes it easy to spot and move on from those women because you don't want to get in a relationship with them because then they're hell on wheels. Then they're constantly accusing you of doing things that you didn't do because they're trying to make up for their own insecurities. And so as the weeks progress, if you got a normal, healthy woman, because it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And if the guy is taking his time and he's in no rush, which most guys are, like we were talking about yesterday, are in a rush to run off to the altar, to get married, to be in a relationship. Like Caroline was talking about, I think second date, the dude's like, "I think I'm starting, I know it's kind of soon, I don't want to freak you out, but I think I'm falling in love with you." And she's like, "What? What? We've had two dates. We haven't even kissed yet." It was like, "What are you talking about?" And so what happens is second, third, fourth week, the woman starts to recognize she doesn't want to wait. And if he's made her feel safe and comfortable, they've had good dates, they have good connection and chemistry, typically what happens is she'll start to text or reach out a day or two after their last date. Just something simple, usually like, "Hey," or "Hey, I had a really good time the other night," or "I was thinking about you. I was watching a movie last night with my girlfriends, and the main character had a blue shirt and it reminded me of the blue shirt you were wearing on our first date or something like that. And so what I teach guys to do is if she reaches out, then make the next date. It means she misses you. It means she wants to see you. So it's true that men are the pursuer and the chaser in the beginning, but what happens as things progress, because feminine energy is bonding, connecting, opening up to receive love. And so what happens is women start calling and texting more, and they start getting together more. And when you're in a relationship and you're in love with each other, it's like women want your attention all the time, and they get mad when they don't get it. But so it's true that in the beginning, the men should chase and pursue. But typically, what happens is when the woman really feels comfortable, really feels safe, she kind of picks the ball up and moves things along a little quicker.
I mean, yeah, I think that girls do some of the chasing some of the time.
But a lot of women, because they listen to crap they hear on TV and they go, it should be 50-50.
No.
So when I do phone sessions with guys, and one of the things I always ask them in the beginning, I said, so like what percentage are you reaching out to her first versus her reaching out to you first? Typically, when it goes well in the beginning, it's the guy is if he's doing things right and it's 3-4 weeks in, he's maybe doing 15-20% of the pursuing, maybe 30, and she's reaching out about 70 to 80% of the time. But when a guy's called me because he got friend zoned or he got dumped, and then he tells me, when I ask him that question, he's like, oh, it was 50-50. It's like, I know before we go anywhere, any further in the story, I already know what he's going to tell me is that at some point he got friend zoned because it felt platonic. Because there's never enough time for where they spend enough time apart where the woman can develop feelings to talk to her girlfriends and gush about the guy she just went out with.
Well, my thing is why does it have to be? I feel like it's a cat and a mouse game. Why does it doesn't have to be 50-50. It doesn't have to be any type of number.
Doesn't have to
Well,
be
when it's
like 20.
Or it just
80.
like if whether you like somebody or not, you should be able to know after that first time, like, hey, I mean, did you click or did you not?
Right.
It shouldn't be, oh, he's texting me. Okay, if you don't like him, then tell him, just block his number.
Or just be upfront.
Or be upfront. You don't have to like keep going back and forth. Just tell him how it is. It doesn't have to always be like a him chase you or you chase him.
Well, it matters because what the guys have the biggest problem with is that they pursue too much. They call too much. They text too much. Like you were talking about yesterday, you got like 10 messages from the dude and you ain't even read the first one yet. And that's typically the kinds of things that happen, especially like when I'm talking to some dude that got friend zoned. So what happens is he pursued too much, especially when it's 50-50. And so now I remember what my train of thought was, is that there's got to be time away from each other to, especially for women. They need time to wonder about this guy. They want to talk to their girlfriends or their mother or their aunt or their female coworkers. And it's in the process of talking and sharing with her other friends in her peer group that the feelings when you're away from one another start to grow. Or I had one of my girlfriend's mothers, as I was really starting to learn this stuff, and I was still over pursuing a little too much, trying to move things along a little quicker than she was. And she even told me, she looked me right in the eye. I can still see this moment like it was yesterday. And she says, Corey, you got to let me come to you. Don't try to force things. And even her mother said the same thing. Her mother's like,
she comes
don't
first.
call her back. Don't call her back. Just wait a few days to call her back and, things like that. But she said the same thing to me. It's like, you got to let her come to you. You're trying too hard. You're doing too much. And it's like, so what I'm teaching the guys to do is to take balanced, measured steps away from one another. Because again, what you've been conditioned to see in the TV and in movies is if you don't put a ring on the finger right away, then you're going to lose her to somebody else. So you better hurry up and lock her down to a commitment. But when guys do that, you feel smothered. And like Thich Nhat Hanh says, you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. And if a guy's smothering you and calling you and texting you all the time and blowing up your phone and trying to get you to go out on 5 dates in 5 days, you're going to back off, and I need some space. I need some time to work on myself. You get those kinds of things.
Maybe
I'm not ready for a relationship right now.
I think that maybe on the date you could have, because everybody I feel like they're at their own little levels. When guys tend to be more abrasive is because they're lonely or insecure. And then a lot of women, they pick women that are more stronger, I guess you would say, you know. So they perceive them because to me, a strong woman, one that's independent, is more attractive, I feel like.
Men don't like independent women. They want women that be a good
But they're attracted to
mother,
them.
a good teammate. They don't want a chick that is
Well-
all in her masculine and focused on her big career. I mean,
Independent
somebody's
doesn't
got
have
to
to
take.
be the career, but independent, it can still be a team player. You know, someone who takes care of your kids as independent. Because when you're away at work, that's being
She's on her
independent.
own.
Well, the
She's on her own.
feminism in the way that an independent woman is, hey, you don't need a man for anything.
Yeah.
And so what happens is there's like what we've been talking about is that the girl is too masculine to the point where everything, whether it's picking out the movie that you're going to go see, what you're going to have for dinner, it's like everything becomes an argument. Everything becomes a tug of war. And so instead of coming home and doing something fun together, you feel like you're competing against another dude for control.
I've never had that problem, but
Well, you're very feminine and very girly. She tends to be very bossy and pushy.
Yeah, I have that problem. That's why I'm getting those looks. But I mean, I get it. Guys don't like to have like competition.
right.
And they don't really know what to do with such like a headstrong woman. Someone who has their mind made up, who doesn't really need to rely on them as much, who can do pretty much everything
But we're
on
in a
their
new
own.
age. You guys got to get
But-
the hell over
right.
it.
Also, at the same time, there are a lot of other guys out there, and probably not the ones that you're coaching, but there are men out there that think that everything is supposed to be 50-50, like Dutch mindset, and they think that they clearly have not read your book, but there are guys
It doesn't
that
matter where it's a gay relationship, a lesbian relationship, a heterosexual relationship. When it's 50-50, the masculine one gets friend zoned because there's no sexual polarity. It's the sexual polarity that attracts us to one another. Even in lesbian relationships, you typically have a very masculine woman and she likes very feminine women, and her wife or her girlfriend tends to be very feminine and she likes masculine women. It's the same thing in gay relationships, because without it, then you're like roommates. There's no passion, there's no sex, there's no desire to tear each other's clothes off. So you got to have the polarity, otherwise you become platonic roommates.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
I've done tens of thousands of these
I
phone
know,
sessions, and I
but-
hear the same thing over and over and over again. I've had lesbians I've done phone sessions with, like my girlfriend won't have sex with me. We haven't had sex in 6 months.
sucks.
And I do one phone session and I get her to start taking the lead, because usually it's the masculine one that is calling me. And what's happened over time is she is a woman, obviously. And so what happens is she starts to become too effeminate and too similar to her girlfriend. And then so nobody leads. There's a lack of masculinity. And when they started the relationship, there was a strong polarity. And so, like I said, it happens slowly over, just like guys. They give up their hobbies, their interests. They get rid of their stamp collection, their Star Wars collection. They get rid of the car they were working on because the girl complains, oh, it's just taking up space. Why don't you sell it and get some money? We could use it to, for the kids, or to take a trip, or to put a pool in, or whatever it happens to be. And then so what happens is the guy, in order to appease his wife, he does all the things that she bitches and complains about. And after a couple of years of being together, he had all these hobbies, these interests, he had all these friends, And one by one, all she has to do is say some snide comment about, I don't really like him, or I don't like your best friend's girlfriend, or whatever. And then 2 years later, he hasn't talked to the guy in years. And so his friendships fade away, his hobbies go away. And then he basically becomes a shell of himself. And then she leaves and says, "You've changed." He's like, "Well, I did everything you wanted." Because there's no polarity. They become too similar. They become like roommates.